Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to bring greetings from the Socialist Workers' Party in Britain. It's a real pleasure to be here and brilliant to be on this panel this evening. I wanted to start perhaps with looking at the bigger picture about Donald Trump, not just about Donald Trump the man, but about the sort of politics that he represents. And it is not unique, sadly. We have to see it in the context of developments that we are seeing both in Europe and in the United States. Donald Trump may look stupid, he may do some stupid things, but we would be very, very wrong to assume that he is just a stupid TV reality star. He has ideology, and he is determined to put this ideology into practice. And I think that what you see is Trump is a product of part of what we have seen as a phenomenon elsewhere, which is the collapse of the political centre, the crisis for the political elites and the establishment. And actually this can cause a polarisation both to the right and to the left. It's not inevitable that the Donald Trumps will always be victorious. There is the potential for this, and we've seen it as well, for it to go to the left as well. But if we look at the right, it can take different forms. There is, what people can call the populist right-wing parties. There is actual real fascism, Eurofascism. We see that this weekend. Tomorrow is the election. I think that the fact that Marine Le Pen has been on a TV debate, the fact that there were not the same mass protests against Marine Le Pen getting into the second round, shows that the National Front, the Front National project to detoxify themselves, to try to make themselves part of normal politics, is succeeding. I happened to be in Paris on the day Marie Le Pen reached the second round. There was spontaneous mass protests, people on their balconies banging saucepans, thousands on the streets the night it happened. This did not happen on the same scale in Paris or anywhere else. This tells us something about the rise of the fascist politics in Paris, in France. It's very serious. She could get 10 million votes tomorrow. She could get 40% of the vote. It doesn't look like she will win, but actually she is playing the long game. The Front National are playing a long game. They have built up and detoxifying the brand and trying to distance themselves from Holocaust-denying fascism. But let's be clear, this is still what they are. They are still fascists and they are still doing it. But I wanted to show that actually, we are not looking at Donald Trump and his populist right-wing politics in a vacuum. There are other developments that we have to understand. And when we look at it, the different parties, different political formations in different countries, in different contexts. But there are some themes that are common to Trump and some of the others. Nationalism, the nation state, racism, not just Islamophobia, though that is rampant, but also the older racism, anti-Semitism, and that sense of being anti-refugees, anti-migrants. These are common themes we see, don't we, in the different far-right and fascist formulations. And that sort of xenophobia really feeds through it all. But also something many of these different organisations and political trends have is claiming, not in reality, but claiming to be anti-establishment, claiming to be for the little people, against the political elite, against the establishment, when in reality, all these people are from the establishment. In Britain, Nigel Farage from UKIP, no longer the leader, and by the way, every UKIP councillor yesterday in Britain lost their seat in our local elections. Not one single UKIP councillor won. UKIP is a racist, populist, right-wing populist party, but it is diminishing at the moment, but we can never be complacent. But that pitch, that idea that they constantly say is we're anti the big people, anti the rich, anti the entitled classes, is such a lie. But it plays to the fact that there is a genuine bitterness about the political elites, anger about the political elites, how they look after themselves. In Britain, the MPs were found out to be pocketing expenses, doing all sorts of scandal and corruption. People are angry about these establishment politicians who seem to just look after themselves. People like Trump express that. They articulate it and claim to be representing ordinary people, even though he's a multi-billionaire. You know, Nigel Farage is a banker. And even Macron, let's remember, he claims he's different, but he's also part of the establishment of the ruling class in France. So I think that we have to be very clear. But when Donald Trump won, this was an enormous victory for the right. Of course, he is now president of the most powerful country in the world. It's a massive advance. And I think one thing, when he won, people in Britain, many on the left, said, oh, it's all over. Donald Trump is president. We have Brexit. Because many people on the left think Brexit is just racism and xenophobia, and that is the same as Trump. I reject that. Many, many people voted against the EU because they hated the bureaucrats, they hated the lack of democracy, they hated the idea that these people did not represent them. Of course, some were anti-refugees and migrants. Of course, some of the voters and some of the political leadership represented racist ideas. But Brexit, the vote for Brexit is different. It's more complex, it's contradictory. Trump is overtly a right-wing vote, a racist vote, and a very misogynist, sexist vote as well, in terms of what he argued, not every single person who voted for him. But we've got to see the contradictions. Trump won, but he had 100 days, and actually many of the things he said, I will do this in 100 days, he was not able to. And in fact, this weekend, he was due to go to New York, where his Trump Tower is in New York. Of course, New York, they have had protests outside Trump Tower virtually every week since the election. He tweeted this evening, I will not be going to New York, I'm going to stay in New Jersey instead. That is the next state. And he said this will save money for the American people because of security. But he is scared to go to New York. He is scared that the protests will be so big, it will make him look bad. So there are contradictions. And he has not started to build the wall with Mexico. He has not been able to impose the travel ban. And the getting rid of Obamacare, they did win a vote yesterday by a few votes. They still have to get it through the other house, the Senate. He could still be blocked then. But he wanted to have it finished now. And so there are contradictions. He has weaknesses. He is having problems. He has not had everything his own way. And it's important that we look at it and understand this. Why has he been blocked? Why is sometimes some of the things he's tried to push through not happened? Well, because there's been resistance. It hasn't been political maneuverings. It has been the fact that there has been a mass revolt from below about what Trump threatened. And the political establishment, they thought they could absorb him. They thought that they could control him. This is still a struggle. I think the political elite underestimated Donald Trump because he actually doesn't care. You know, he wants to just run it as his own individual fiefdom, if that makes sense. But that sense of the political establishment underestimating him, that sense was, they were terrified of the revolts, terrified of the resistance that he has provoked. They are very worried that he is going to cause such upheaval that will challenge their interests as well. So even amongst the ruling class, there is a battle about what Trump can do. But this flows from the fact that there has been such a revolt from below. And I think that that sense of resistance is something very, very powerful. But we cannot be complacent, because he may have his problems, but look, on a number of issues he's still going forward. On war, he dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. He is threatening to use press the nuclear button and threaten North Korea in a way that we haven't seen for years. And also, of course, bombing Syria and upping the stakes in Syria. And I think that sense of instability that this has created. I am an officer of Stop the War Coalition in Britain, And after the American election, some Stop the War activists wrote to the office, and they said, we are so relieved that Hillary Clinton lost, because she was a warmonger. But Donald Trump, he says he will not intervene. He is America first. He will not be an interventionist. So we're very happy that we think that Donald Trump will not cause more wars. How wrong they were. We said that, we argued against this and had meetings about it. But how wrong, because actually this is a U-turn for Donald Trump. He said he wasn't going to get into more wars, but of course, again, he doesn't care about U-turns. He will build it as being something that shows he is decisive. But it's a very dangerous development. The world is a more dangerous place now with Donald Trump than it has been for some time. Now, Donald Trump had some own domestic reasons for bombing Syria, because he wanted to make a distance between his administration and the Russian ruling class, because everybody is saying that they are together. And I think, therefore, it shows the cynicism that he wasn't doing it about beautiful refugees. He claimed he bombed Syria for beautiful refugees and he cared about them. This is such a lie. If he really cared about Syrian refugees, why is he wanting to put a travel ban on every refugee that comes from Syria? It's utter hypocrisy. But that sense of him doing it for his own interests is something we have to remember. But we also cannot be complacent, because on every front he is still going ahead, whether it's climate change or other aspects. But in particular, the attacks on women's rights. This is a president who said that boasted about grabbing pussy. He is in the White House. This is a man whose vice president has been an anti-abortion politician for years and put through laws in his own state to turn the clock back for women's rights in America. And it's absolutely shocking what he said before the election and what he wants to do. And this is what provoked really the opening of the era of revolt, the women's marches. I understand you had one here in Vienna, and we had 100,000 in Britain. It was absolutely magnificent. But what was special about the demonstrations on the day after the inauguration, the women's marches, which of course were women and men? They were not only gigantic, millions across the globe. Nothing as big since the time of the anti-war movement at its peak. But about an issue of women's rights, we haven't seen anything like this for absolutely years. And I think what was special, it brought together veterans of people who have fought for women's rights, people who have fought for decades, but also millions of young people, young women, young men, who say, we are horrified that this man is our president, or that he is president of America, and we are going to march. And therefore you saw something very, very different. And I think that sort of demonstration, young, militant. I mean, in Britain, many people came to us. We were with SWP placards. Do we have to pay for the placard? Can I take it home? I've never been on a demonstration before. You know, you always can tell when people are brand new is they ask permission for a placard. That sense of new energy, a new generation coming into the struggle was something absolutely fantastic. Of course, in Britain and in America, some of the right-wing Labour, tried to get on and muscle in and speak on the platform. Stella Creasy, a Labour MP, who's very anti the left, she spoke on the platform. In America, many of the Democratic Party machine were speaking on the platform, telling people you should join the Democratic Party, etc. But the fact that they want to try to shape it doesn't take away from the significance of these protests. These were something groundbreaking. These were something special, and we have to fight to be involved and to shape and to lead these. But it wasn't just the women's marches, the travel ban. I mean, anti-racism is something that is absolute, as I said, it's something that is the theme of the fascists and the far-right populist parties, is racism and xenophobia. And I don't know about all of you, but when I saw the people at airports welcoming people and protesting against the travel ban, it was so powerful, wasn't it? So moving. such an expression of solidarity to challenge what Trump wanted to do, to make people fear outsiders, to make people hate outsiders, to make people feel that anybody coming into America was a danger from Muslim countries. He said it was not a Muslim ban, it was effectively a Muslim ban. But he hasn't been able to do it, and I think it's the gigantic protest that absolutely did this. The big question is, where do these go next? In America, do they get sucked into Democratic Party politics? I'm sorry, the Democratic Party's failure was what led to Trump. You know, Clinton was on TV yesterday saying it was all about the FBI. If it hadn't been for them, I would have won. No, it was because she was a warmonger. She was a neoliberal, because she offered more of the same. That's why she lost, not because of skullduggery and shenanigans behind. It cannot be left up to the establishment which has failed us to try and claim that they are now the alternative. It's up to us, our class, our side, our mass movements. These are what can challenge both Trump in America, but also his equivalents, or even the worst aspects, the fascist parties in Europe. And I think that in Britain we have a special responsibility because we have a special relationship with America. Theresa May, our Prime Minister, was the first person to visit and hold his hand in the White House. It was sickening towards that. So we have vowed that if he comes, and she gave him the first state invite to come to Britain, but he hasn't come yet. He was going to come this month, but they were worried about the protests. They're putting it off until the Queen is not in London, because he will have to meet the Queen, and they think that if the Queen is at one of her other palaces, somewhere else in Scotland, that perhaps they will not have such a big protest. But believe me, we will have a protest wherever he goes in Britain, whether it's up a mountain, whether it's in a valley, whether it's on an island. There will be mass protests when Trump comes, because the movement that has erupted in Britain around this is something that we haven't seen for absolutely years. And I think the challenge for us, and I'll finish here, the challenge for us on the left and for socialists is, can we offer an alternative? Are we strong enough? Have we got a big enough profile? Are we out there being able to offer an alternative both to the right and the despair that they provide, that they push, but also to offer something to shape the movement that the right wing have provoked, to lead it, to not let it go down the electoral road, not let it go down the dead ends of reformist politics, but actually to challenge something much bigger than that. And we'll come back to those sort of questions tomorrow as well. Thank you.